Welcome to History with Herodotus, where we delve into the depths of time to uncover the secrets of our shared human experience. Today we embark on a journey to explore one of the most pivotal events in modern history, Operation Barbarossa. This colossal military campaign, launched by Nazi Germany against the Soviet Union, would go on to shape the course of World War II and leave an indelible mark on the world. As we set out to examine the origins of this monumental event, let us first situate ourselves in the tumultuous landscape of Europe in the late 1930s. The continent was ablaze with tension, as the fascist regimes of Germany, Italy, and Spain sought to expand their territories and impose their ideologies on the world. The Treaty of Versailles, which had ended World War I, had imposed harsh penalties on Germany, including significant territorial losses and severe limitations on its military capabilities. This led to a deep-seated resentment among the German people, who felt that they had been unjustly punished for the war. In this volatile environment, Adolf Hitler rose to power in Germany, promising to restore his country's honor and prestige. He began to aggressively challenge the Treaty of Versailles, remilitarizing the Rhineland in 1936 and annexing Austria in 1938. The Munich Agreement, signed in September 1938, allowed Germany to annex the Sudetenland in Czechoslovakia, further emboldening Hitler's ambitions. As we navigate the complex web of events that led to Operation Barbarossa, we find ourselves in the midst of a fragile detente between Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union. The Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, signed on August 23, 1939, had created a temporary alliance between the two nations, with a secret protocol dividing Eastern Europe into Soviet and German spheres of influence. This pact allowed Hitler to focus on his Western enemies, while Joseph Stalin, the Soviet leader, could consolidate his power and secure his borders. However, this fragile peace was not destined to last. In November 1939, the Soviet Union invaded Finland, leading to a brutal winter war that lasted until March 1940. This conflict exposed the weaknesses of the Soviet military, which had been decimated by Stalin's Great Purge in the late 1930s. The Purge had eliminated many experienced officers, leaving the Red Army vulnerable to attack. As the winter of 1939-40 drew to a close, Hitler began to turn his attention to the east, seeking to secure Germany's borders and prevent the Soviet Union from posing a threat to his ambitions. In December 1940, he issued Directive 21, which outlined the operational objectives for an invasion of the Soviet Union. The directive called for a rapid and decisive campaign with the goal of defeating the Soviet Union's military forces and capturing key cities such as Moscow, Leningrad, and Kiev. The German High Command began to mobilize its military resources, assembling a massive force of over 3 million soldiers, supported by thousands of tanks, aircraft, and artillery pieces. The invasion plan, codenamed Operation Barbarossa, was designed to quickly overwhelm the Soviet defenses and capture key territory. The German military was poised to unleash a blitzkrieg-style campaign, characterized by rapid mobility and surprise attacks. As we conclude our examination of the earliest history of Operation Barbarossa, we find ourselves poised on the threshold of a new era in this epic conflict. The die has been cast, and the fate of Europe hangs precariously in the balance. Join me, dear listeners, as we venture forth into the heart of this tumultuous period and uncover the secrets that lie within. Welcome back to History with Herodotus, as we continue our exploration of Operation Barbarossa, the monumental military campaign launched by Nazi Germany against the Soviet Union. As the invasion began on June 22, 1941, the German Wehrmacht made rapid gains, pushing deep into Soviet territory and capturing key cities such as Minsk, Kiev, and Smolensk. The Soviet Red Army, still reeling from the devastating effects of Stalin's Great Purge, struggled to mount an effective defense against the German onslaught. The Luftwaffe, Germany's air force, played a crucial role in the campaign, providing close air support to ground troops and wreaking havoc on Soviet airfields and aircraft. One of the most significant battles fought during this period was the Battle of Smolensk, which took place from July 10 to September 10, 1941. The German Army Group Center, led by Field Marshal Fedor von Bock, clashed with the Soviet Western Front, led by General Dmitry Pavlov, in a brutal and bloody conflict that would ultimately result in the capture of the city. The battle was marked by fierce fighting, with both sides suffering heavy casualties, but the Germans ultimately emerged victorious. As the German army advanced deeper into Soviet territory, they encountered increasingly harsh weather conditions, including the notorious Russian winter. The Soviet Union's scorched earth policy, which involved destroying infrastructure and supplies to deny them to the enemy, also slowed the German advance. Despite these challenges, the German military continued to push forward, driven by Hitler's obsessive desire to capture Moscow and defeat the Soviet Union. The invasion of the Soviet Union was not limited to military conquest alone. It also had a profound impact on the civilian population. The Nazis implemented a policy of systematic terror and genocide, targeting Jews, communists, and other perceived enemies of the state. The Einsatzgruppen, special killing units tasked with eliminating these groups, roamed the countryside, leaving a trail of death and destruction in their wake. As we explore this pivotal period in Operation Barbarossa, it is essential to remember the human cost of the conflict. Millions of soldiers and civilians were killed or wounded, and entire cities were reduced to rubble. The invasion also had a profound impact on the Soviet Union's economy and infrastructure, with widespread destruction of factories, roads, and other critical facilities. Despite these challenges, the Soviet Union refused to surrender. As the German army approached Moscow, the Soviet capital, the Red Army launched a series of desperate counterattacks, including the Battle of Moscow, which took place from October 1941 to January 1942. The battle was a major turning point in the campaign, as the Soviet Union's defenses finally began to stiffen, and the German army was forced to retreat. As we conclude our examination of this critical period in Operation Barbarossa, we find ourselves at a crossroads in the conflict. The German military has suffered significant setbacks, but the Soviet Union has also paid a heavy price for its resistance. Join me, dear listeners, as we venture forth into the final act of this epic conflict and uncover the secrets that lie within. Welcome back to History with Herodotus as we conclude our exploration of Operation Barbarossa, the monumental military campaign launched by Nazi Germany against the Soviet Union. The turning point came in January 1943, when the Soviet Union launched Operation Uranus, a massive counterattack that encircled and trapped the German Sixth Army at Stalingrad. This catastrophic defeat marked a major shift in the balance of power on the Eastern Front, as the Soviet Union began to push the Germans back towards their own borders. As the Soviet Union advanced, they encountered scenes of unimaginable horror and destruction, left behind by the retreating German army. The Nazis had implemented a policy of scorched earth, destroying everything of value, from buildings and bridges to crops and livestock. The Soviet people were left to pick up the pieces, rebuilding their shattered communities, and mourning the loss of millions of loved ones. The final blow came in April 1945, when the Soviet Union launched its last major offensive, capturing Berlin and forcing Hitler's surrender. The war in Europe was finally over, but the cost had been staggering. An estimated 27 million people had lost their lives, including 8 million Soviet soldiers and 19 million civilians. The Soviet Union had borne the brunt of the fighting, suffering more casualties than any other Allied power. In the aftermath of the war, the Soviet Union emerged as one of the world's superpowers, its reputation as a military giant forever cemented in history. But the legacy of Operation Barbarossa would be felt for generations to come, shaping the course of international relations and leaving deep scars on the Russian people. As we reflect on this pivotal moment in history, it is essential to remember the human cost of war and the devastating consequences of totalitarian regimes like Nazi Germany. The sacrifices made by the Soviet people during World War II will never be forgotten, and their bravery and resilience will continue to inspire generations to come. In conclusion, Operation Barbarossa was a defining moment in modern history, marking a major turning point in the struggle against fascism and tyranny. As we close this chapter on our exploration of this epic conflict, we are reminded of the importance of learning from the past and working towards a more peaceful and just future for all humanity. Thank you for joining me on this journey through one of the most significant events of the 20th century. That's all for today's History with Herodotus. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, remember that to understand the present, we must first understand the past.